My wife threw me out like trash and said I'd never be a man. 5 years later, she walked into my office begging for a job she didn't know the company was mine. Before we begin, don't forget to like and subscribe. It really helps the channel. My name is Ethan. 5 years ago, the woman I married told me I would never amount to anything. She said I would never be a real man, never truly successful, and never worthy of the life she wanted. She said it calmly at first. Then she packed my belongings and threw me out of our home while another man, someone who represented everything she believed I wasn't, waited for her downstairs. But this story isn't about the night she left me behind. It's about what happened years later when she unknowingly walked back into my life. To understand that, I need to take you back to the moment everything fell apart. I was 29 years old at the time, living in Chicago and working construction. 60 hours a week, sometimes more. My hands were always scraped, my back always sore, but I worked hard enough to keep a roof over our heads and food on the table. We didn't live in luxury, but we survived. My wife, Vanessa, worked at a high-end car dealership downtown. She sold luxury vehicles to people who spent more on a watch than I earned in months. Money flowed easily in her world. In mine, every dollar was calculated. We had been married for 3 years, and somewhere along the way, I stopped being enough for her. I remember one evening in particular. I came home worn out, clothes covered in dust and dried paint, muscles screaming. She was sitting on the bed scrolling through her phone with a smile I hadn't seen directed at me in a long time. I asked how her day went, trying to sound upbeat despite the exhaustion. She barely glanced up. She mentioned meeting an interesting client. Something about the way she said it made my stomach tighten, but I brushed it off. I trusted her completely. Looking back, that trust feels like ignorance. Over the following weeks, everything about her began to shift. New outfits appeared in her closet, clothes I knew we couldn't afford. A new perfume filled the apartment, something I'd never bought her. She started coming home late, claiming inventory audits or after-hours meetings that never existed before. And she talked about Adam. Adam was wealthy. Adam paid cash for a Porsche. Adam lived in a penthouse. Adam embodied every insecurity I had but never voiced. She spoke about him casually at first, but the admiration in her voice was impossible to ignore. Then the comparisons began. She'd sigh when she saw my aging Honda. She'd show me posts of men our age who owned businesses, traveled constantly, and lived extravagant lives. She never said it directly, but she made sure I felt small. I tried to explain myself. I told her about my plan, how I was saving to start my own contracting business, how I stayed up late taking online business courses after grueling shifts, how construction was temporary. She dismissed it all with a roll of her eyes. To her, my words were just dreams from a man going nowhere. The night everything shattered came unexpectedly. A storm shut down my job site early, and I came home hours ahead of schedule. When I walked into the kitchen, her iPad lit up on the counter with a notification. I wasn't searching for anything. I wasn't suspicious enough to snoop, but the preview alone froze me in place. It was a message from Adam. It mentioned meeting that night and a red dress he had bought her. My hands trembled as I unlocked the screen. What I found was months of betrayal, explicit messages, intimate photos, hotel bookings, plans carefully crafted to avoid me. My marriage existed only on the surface. Beneath it was a life she'd hidden effortlessly. When Vanessa came home later, I was seated at the table, the iPad lying between us. She took one look at my face and knew. What I didn't expect was her complete lack of remorse. There were no tears, no apologies, no excuses. Instead, she exploded, accusing me of invading her privacy, acting like I was the villain. When I confronted her with everything I'd seen, she laughed. Actually laughed. She told me to face reality. She said Adam was a real man, successful, driven, accomplished, while I was just a construction worker pretending I had ambition. She listed every failure she'd been storing for years. Every promise she believed I'd broken, every luxury I couldn't provide. But it wasn't the words that hurt the most. It was the disdain in her voice. Then she started pulling my clothes from the closet, throwing them into trash bags without hesitation. I stood there, numb, watching my marriage dissolve in real time. She dragged the bags into the hallway and kept going. Neighbors peeked out of their apartments, witnessing my humiliation. She didn't care. She told me loudly that I would never become anything, that I was wasting her time, that she deserved better. Within an hour, my entire life sat in garbage bags on the sidewalk. She changed the locks while I stood outside. That night, I slept in my car in a Walmart parking lot. It was cold. I had no blanket, just me, my belongings, and the echo of her words. At 3 in the morning, rain tapped against the windshield as I stared into darkness, replaying every moment of my marriage. Shame weighed heavier than exhaustion, but something changed. The pain hardened into resolve. I spoke out loud, alone in that car, and made myself a promise. If I ever crossed paths with Vanessa again, I would be the man she said I could never be. The next 3 months were brutal. I rented a tiny studio in a rough neighborhood on the south side. Sirens replaced silence. The walls were thin, the smell never faded. But it was mine and it was cheap. I kept my construction job, I showed up no matter how drained I felt, I stopped wasting money, I stopped socializing. Every spare dollar went into savings and education. At night after 12-hour shifts, I studied business, accounting, marketing, project management. I wasn't just learning how to work, I was learning how to build something of my own. 6 months later, I started taking small side jobs on weekends, Craigslist ads, Facebook posts, bathroom repairs. Deck fixes, anything to build experience and reputation. I charged less than competitors but delivered more. Sometimes I worked 16 hours straight just to make sure clients were satisfied. Slowly, my name began circulating. One recommendation turned into another. By the end of the first year, I had saved $15,000 and more work requests than I could handle. I quit my construction job and went all in. It was terrifying, no safety net, no guaranteed paycheck, just belief and memory fueling me. I registered my company properly, Turner Renovations, licenses, insurance, business accounts, everything done professionally. Every step forward reminded me of that night in the parking lot and why failure was no longer an option. The second year was all about expansion. I brought on my first employee, Michael, a younger guy I'd worked alongside back in my construction days. He had raw skill but no clear path. Then I hired another, then another after that. I purchased a used cargo van and had my company's logo painted on the side. It probably shouldn't have meant as much as it did, but seeing that name rolling down the street felt like proof that this was real. We focused on mid-range residential renovations, kitchens and bathrooms for hardworking families who wanted solid craftsmanship without being ripped off. I quickly learned that running a business wasn't just about the quality of the work, it was about trust. I returned calls within the hour. I arrived exactly when I said I would. I sent clear estimates and regular progress updates. I treated every home like it belonged to someone I loved. Those simple habits, things that should have been standard but weren't, set us apart. By year 3, momentum finally hit. We secured our first large contract with a property management company that needed renovations on 12 rental units. It meant 6 straight months of guaranteed work. I hired 4 more people and upgraded our equipment. What had started as just me and a truck was becoming something real. I moved out of that awful studio into a quiet 2-bedroom apartment, nothing luxurious but peaceful. I upgraded my vehicle too, still used but dependable and respectable. I met with a financial advisor and started thinking long-term instead of paycheck to paycheck. By year 4, Turner Renovations had 15 employees, 3 company trucks, and a small office in a commercial complex. We were handling full home remodels, kitchens, bathrooms, basements, and even some light commercial projects. Annual revenue passed the 7-figure mark. I wasn't living extravagantly, but I was secure. I'd gone from sleeping in my car to owning a business people trusted. Suppliers recognized me by name, other contractors knew who I was. Clients left glowing reviews praising our reliability and professionalism. Around that time, I met Samantha at a networking event. She worked as a project manager at a marketing firm, focused, intelligent, and quietly confident. We started with coffee meetings, then dinners, then weekends together. She knew I'd been married before and that it hadn't ended well, but she never pushed. She supported me without trying to fix me. By the start of year 5, we'd been together 8 months, and I felt more at peace than I had in years. Then year 5 arrived and everything shifted again. We had grown to 22 employees, and I knew we needed better internal structure. I hired an accountant, promoted Michael to lead project manager, and decided it was time to bring on an HR coordinator. My assistant posted the job listing online, and resumes began pouring in. One afternoon, while reviewing bids in my office, she handed me a stack of applications. I flipped through them casually, until one stopped me cold. At the top of the page was a name I never expected to see again: Vanessa Turner. My ex-wife, the woman who had thrown my life into garbage bags and told me I'd never succeed, had just applied for a job at my company. My hands went numb as I read further. She'd left the dealership 2 years earlier and bounced between administrative roles. Nothing impressive, nothing stable. Her salary expectation was actually lower than what we were offering. I sat there staring at the resume, 5 years of memories crashing into my mind. She had no idea this was my company. The business was registered under my full legal name, and we'd never connected online after the divorce. She had applied blindly. I could have rejected her immediately, deleted the application. Moved on, that would have been easy, but instead something else surfaced, a moment of clarity. I called my assistant and asked her to schedule Vanessa Turner for an interview, next Thursday, 2:00 p.m. With me, when she asked if anyone else should attend, I said no. This was something I needed to face alone. Over the next week, I didn't prepare interview questions. I prepared myself. I needed to sit across from the woman who had shattered me and feel nothing. No anger, no pride, no satisfaction, just neutrality. That, I realized, would be the true victory. Thursday came. At 1:59 p.m., I sat in my office, calm and composed. I heard the front door open. My assistant greeted someone, footsteps moved down the hallway, then my door opened. Vanessa stepped inside, wearing a nervous smile and a business suit that looked brand new. She was looking through documents in her folder when my assistant escorted her inside, so she didn't notice me immediately. The second her eyes lifted and locked onto mine behind that desk, I watched her entire expression collapse. All the color drained from her face. Her eyes widened in shock. The folder slipped from her hands and papers scattered across the floor. She stood there frozen, struggling to comprehend how the man she had thrown out with garbage bags 5 years earlier was now sitting in a private executive office, owning the very company she had applied to. I kept my face calm and motioned for her to take a seat. She bent down slowly to collect the papers, her hands shaking so badly it was impossible to miss, then sat across from me without saying a word. The interview itself was short and painfully uncomfortable. She stumbled through even the simplest questions about her background, clearly distracted by the reality sitting in front of her. I stayed professional, asking standard questions while she tried to reconcile who I was now with the version of me she had left behind. Between questions, she volunteered information about her life after our divorce. Adam, the wealthy businessman with the Porsche and penthouse, had been a lie. The car was leased. The apartment belonged to his parents. His business collapsed within 6 months. She moved back in with her mother, bounced between low-paying office jobs, and barely managed to stay afloat financially. She apologized more than once, calling herself immature and foolish, saying she regretted everything. I listened without reacting. At the end of the interview, I surprised even myself. I told her we would offer a 90-day probationary period. Her experience wasn't exactly what we were looking for, but everyone deserved the chance to prove their value. Maybe this was a way for both of us to close the door properly. Relief flooded her face. She thanked me repeatedly as she left. What I didn't tell her was that this decision had nothing to do with mercy or forgiveness. It was a test for me. I needed to know if I could be around the woman who had broken me and feel absolutely nothing. Her first week was strictly professional. She arrived early, stayed late, asked intelligent questions, and kept her distance. By the second week, that changed. She found reasons to stop by my office, questions that didn't need face-to-face answers. She brought me coffee in the mornings. She complimented my tie. She talked about how impressive the company was and how far I'd come. I responded politely and redirected every conversation back to work. By the third week, she became more obvious. She started referencing the past, bringing up old memories, laughing about jokes only we used to share. One afternoon, she commented on how different I looked now, how confidence and success suited me. I recognized the shift immediately. She was testing boundaries. I shut it down calmly, reminding her that we were colleagues and needed to keep things professional. She looked disappointed but agreed, at least temporarily. Then she tried a new angle. She mentioned being free for lunch, asked about my weekends, asked if I was seeing anyone. She dressed more carefully on days we had meetings and laughed just a little too hard at my comments. It wasn't subtle, and honestly, it was sad. About 6 weeks into her probation, she stayed late after most of the staff had left. She came to my office and asked if we could talk, not about work but about us. She said being there every day had reminded her of what she lost. That seeing me had brought back memories of the good parts of our marriage. She talked about second chances, personal growth, and suggested meeting outside of work, just coffee, just dinner. I let her finish, then I told her calmly that whatever we had ended a long time ago, I wasn't angry, I wasn't bitter, I had simply moved on. We were different people now, living separate lives, and that's where it needed to stay. She looked devastated. Her eyes filled with tears as she asked if this was revenge, if I was rejecting her the way she once rejected me. I told her the truth. It wasn't revenge, it was indifference. I felt nothing when I looked at her anymore. No anger, no attraction, no nostalgia, she was just someone I used to know. That conversation happened on a Thursday. The following Monday, I called her into my office for her 90-day evaluation. I handled it professionally, written notes, documented feedback. I thanked her for her effort and acknowledged her dedication. Then I explained that we needed someone with deeper HR experience, someone who had managed complex operations in a growing company. Our needs had changed, and we decided to move forward with a candidate whose background aligned better with where we were headed. I told her we would pay her through the end of the month and provide a positive reference. She sat silently, understanding the unspoken truth beneath the explanation. This wasn't just about qualifications. I was letting her go with professionalism, severance pay, and dignity, rather than humiliation and trash bags on a sidewalk. She asked softly if there was anything she could do to change my mind. I told her the decision was final. She stood up slowly. For a moment, I thought she might cry or lash out. Instead, she nodded, thanked me for the opportunity, and left. Through the window, I watched her pack her desk, say goodbye to coworkers, and walk out of the parking lot for the last time. And I felt nothing, no triumph, no guilt, no satisfaction, just peace. That evening, I drove to Samantha's apartment. She was cooking dinner, singing along to music, completely unaware of the closure I'd just experienced. I told her I'd had a strange day, that I'd finally let go of something heavy. She kissed me and asked if I felt better. I realized I did. Vanessa didn't destroy me 5 years ago, she unknowingly freed me to become someone stronger. And by walking away from her for good, I proved that I truly had changed. Sometimes the greatest revenge isn't hurting someone back. It's reaching a place where you genuinely don't need them to hurt at all. What do you think about this story? Let me know in the comments, drop a like, and don't forget to subscribe for more real-life stories.